You do not want to release your cake at this moment. If you look, there is like water. I mean, that's how fast the condensation builds up. Because with the way that I had it wrapped, there is just no way that water could have gotten in there. So, because what I have found from experience in making the cheesecakes is hi, and welcome to Prairie Acres Farm. And happy Memorial Day, or Memorial Day weekend. So today is Saturday, August 30th. And I have a treat for you today. So my son and my wonderful daughter-in-law is traveling all the way from Illinois to Southeast Texas to visit us this weekend. So as a special treat for them, I wanted to make a New York style cheesecake. And I'm going to bring you along for the journey. So what we will need, 18 graham crackers crushed, 3 tablespoons of melted butter. And then for me, personally, I put in a 1/4 cup of sugar. And that's just for the crust. Now for the cake itself, you are going to need 1 cup of sour cream, 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, 4 8-ounce packages of cream cheese, 1½ cups of white sugar, 2/3 cup of milk, 4 large eggs, 1 teaspoon of finely grated lemon zest, and 1 teaspoon of finely grated orange zest. Now I already have my oven in the process of preheating, also with a water bath. And I'll show you that here when we get to it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to make the graham cracker crust. So I am going to bring you as close as I can. So I don't have Mata here today, so please bear with me. Let's get started. So I only have limited amount of counter space, as you can see, and I've got it all stretched out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the food processor and I'm going to crush the graham cracker. And while I am doing that, I'm also going to melt my butter. Please forgive me if it gets noisy. There's no way around this one. So I just take the graham crackers and I just kind of crush it up in the package. Kind of decreases the amount of work my food processor has to make. There's one package, and then here's the second package. Let me see if I can get this thing open. Alrighty, so those are our 2 packages, and I'm going to put this on. Lock it. So give me 30 seconds, if that. Oh, perfect. So that was like 15 seconds, if that. Next, I'm going to add my sugar, and that is 1/4 cup of sugar. All right, so that was a total of 15 seconds with the sugar added. So let me get the butter. All righty, I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to pour the butter in through indentation here. Alrighty, so our breadcrumbs are ready. What we are going to do next is I'm going to need a Springform pan for this. So what I do, you don't have to do this, but this is what I do. I take some shortening on a paper towel. Oh, there's my oven. It's up to temperature. And I just kind of grease the bottom very lightly. You don't need a lot. And then I also do the sides of the Springform pan. And I do this fairly liberally because what you can do, you can wrap it in parchment paper. Now I find personally that when I do it like this, I honestly don't need the parchment paper along the sides. But what I do is I take a piece of parchment paper and I lay it on the bottom. And I kind of work out the air bubbles. And then I take my ring and I set it over top, making sure that I get it in the groove. And then I lock it down. And that's all you do. Now, as an extra step, just because I'm me, and so what I do is I just take a pair of scissors and I go around the edge and get rid of the excess. Just double checking that this here is in the groove, and it is. So next what I do, take out my blade so I don't cut myself. I just dump my graham cracker mix in. So this here is a little bit more wet than I normally have it, but it should be fine. So, and then this here little tool is a hamburger press that my mother-in-law gave me many years ago. And then I just kind of go around the edge or in the pan and I press down my graham cracker crust. And what makes this really nice is that it's round, so it goes around those edges really nice. Because when you're working with round containers, sometimes it's difficult to get it right up against the edge. Yeah, this is a little bit more wet than I normally do, but I put in a little bit of extra butter. And all I'm doing is I'm just working this crust around the edge of the pan, so where it's a little thin, I can just move it around and get it to where I like it. Alrighty, so this here is what we're looking at. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it in the oven for 10 minutes. Alrighty, so the crust is in the oven and I've got my timer set for 10 minutes. So when my crust gets a little wet like that, I bake it for 10 minutes and that kind of dries it out a little bit because you don't want it like super wet. Now, what we have here is I've got several different cheeses that I'm going to be doing. I've got some homemade cream cheese that I made. I've got some fromage blanc, and then I also have some Philadelphia. For me, I don't always use the Philadelphia. I do use it once in a while, especially if I think I'm going to be a little low on my own cream cheese. And there's also times where I just like having the Philadelphia because it adds a little bit of more creaminess to the mixture. So the first thing that I am going to do, I'm going to open up my fromage blanc, and that is what we have. So I'm just going to put it, whoops, in my container here, or in my bowl. There's that. And then so this here is my homemade cream cheese that I've made. And I'm just gonna pour this in, so that container of fromage blanc that I put in, that was 1 pound. Now, when you go to look up New York style cheesecake, I mean, there's a zillion recipes out there. So you can mix and match. You can do all Philadelphia cream cheese. It really doesn't matter as long as you have at least 2 pounds of cheese. Now today, just to show you, I am going to use a brick or 8 ounces of the Philadelphia, and I've had it warming up on my counter here since I got up this morning, because I wanted it softened. And all of this is going to do is just add a creaminess to my mixture. The other thing that I've done also, especially when I send my husband shopping, is he's brought me back the Great Value cream cheese before, and that works fine as well. You don't have to use Philadelphia. I just like it. Okay, so it's going to get noisy for a few seconds. I'm going to lower my whisk down, and I'm just going to blend all of these cheeses together. And I'm going to start off on low. So right now it is on high. Okay, I'm just going to lift it up. I'm going to take my spatula and I'm just going to go down the sides, because I want to make sure all of this gets incorporated. So what you're looking for is a nice blended consistency. And yeah, it'll be in the beater here, but you can dislodge that. So the next thing that you're going to put in is your milk. So you want 2/3 cup of milk, and I am using raw cow's milk because I have it in abundance. Let me take that out. Okay, you just want to whip it until it's combined. And you don't need it on Mega Blaster. got it on about a 6 right now. Again, scrape down your sides. And you can see how it's kind of falling off your whisk. That is what you're looking for. Make sure you get the bottom. Okay, before I move on with this part, so in a separate bowl or ramekin, what you want to do is you want to add your 1 cup of sour cream. You want to add your 1/4 cup of flour. And then you want 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And then you're going to take your whisk and you're going to just whisk it together. Oh, there's our crust. Let me finish this real quick. Yes, I hear you. Okay, there's that. Alrighty, so our crust is out of the oven, and I just put it on the chopping block, literally. And I'm going to finish mixing this up. I want to make sure it's nice and incorporated. And this here is our blend. All right, so next on the agenda for this, lock it down, and what we want to do is we want to add our eggs, 4 eggs, 1 at a time. And so what I do, I'm using farm eggs. These come from my chickens. So I just crack 1. And just to make sure there isn't anything going on with my eggs. There's 1. There's 2. Three. And 4. So, funny story. One time I was making this, and I totally forgot to add sugar. How did you forget that? I don't know, but I did. I mean, the cake came out perfect, except it did not taste very good. All right, so I'm just going to scrape down the sides. And the bottom, make sure we get everything all nice. Now with the stand mixer, I use a whisk because I'm using so many different cheeses, but you can also use the paddle attachment. You don't have to use a whisk. That's just my personal preference. So I'm going to lock it down. And next I'm going to add my cup and a half of sugar. This is looking very, very nice. Look how nice that looks. So I'm just going to scrape my sides one more time. Now for this part, we're going to take our mixture, the flour, sour cream, and vanilla, and we're going to add it into our bowl. So with this part here, you just want it to where it's combined. You don't want to beat it very, very long or aggressively. Get all of that cheesy goodness into the bowl. Lock it down and blend it some more. So you want to just on about medium here. This here is on a 4. You just want to make sure that it's nice and blended. You don't want to over whip it. And what I look for is I make sure that there are no lumps in my batter as it's going around. So let me show you. Hopefully you can see that. Like I said, I am on my own today. So today is Maddie's birthday. Let me turn this off. Today is Maddie's birthday, and I've already wished her a happy birthday. So, in the comments, say a happy birthday to Maddie. So the last thing that we are going to add to this mixture is our lemon zest and our orange zest. So I've already got it started, but you can use a zester if you wish. I personally don't. I like the more thicker pieces of oranges and lemons. So I've already got 1 lemon in here. It says 1 teaspoon. I like a little bit more. So all you do is you just take your grater. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And you just want that peel. If you go down into the white part of your lemon and or orange, what can happen is that it can add a bitterness to your batter that you may not want. So try not to get the white part. And so that's that. And then I've got a little bit left of the orange just for demonstration purposes. I like to kind of set the grater on top of my ramekin. And I go around the orange and get just the zest. And that's all there is to it. Now what I'm going to make some lemonade or some lemon water for my husband with the leftover lemons. And then with the orange, I'm going to use that to make a wasp trap because we've got some red wasps and they are a nuisance. So I'm going to make a wasp trap with that and hopefully get rid of the wasp because they're up in the soffit of my house. There's that. And then we're just going to bring our beater down, lock it, and we're just going to whip it to where the lemon zest and the orange zest is incorporated. And that will be it. Alrighty. There you have it. Now you want to bake this at 350 degrees in a water bath. And I will show you how you're going to do that. I use a very old pan, and that's its sole purpose right now is to serve as my water bath for cheesecakes because it's the only pan I have that is large enough that will accommodate my Springform pan. So let me get the crust and we'll empty our batter into the crust. All right, so here's our crust, as you can see. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and we just pour it right on top. So all I'm doing is scraping my bowl, getting everything out. Because honestly, guys, if you were making this with store-bought ingredients, you want to make sure that you get everything because it's expensive to make. And I just kind of move it around a little. And then what I do is I give it a nice gentle tap. Get the air bubbles out. You don't want to like really hammer this because you don't want your bottom to fall out by mistake. So let me clear out some of this. Now the next thing that we're going to need is Reynolds wrap. I like using the really long stuff for this part because you want to put the tin foil up and around your Springform pan, and that will prevent water from getting in. All you're going to do is take your pan, put it on there, and then what I do is I pull down the side, or not the sides, the corners. And then I just kind of do a hospital corner right there. But you want to get it up high enough to where the water won't get in. I really hope y'all can see this. And as you can see, this recipe fills up this pan. I mean, it is full. So, and I believe this is a 12-inch diameter Springform pan. And that's all there is to it. So where I crimped it here, what I do is I kind of go over with the edge and lock it down, basically, because I don't want any water to get in there, because it will ruin your crust and potentially your batter. So we don't want that to happen. So I don't know where you're at in the world, but here in Southeast Texas, it is rainy, it's gloomy, and so it's a perfect day for doing some baking. So here we go, or here we are. We've got our cake batter ready. It's in the pan, and now we're going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 1 hour. So I'm going to turn the camera, and hopefully you guys can see what I'm going to be doing. So I have my water bath ready. And all I'm going to do is very carefully take my cake and very carefully put it in the water bath. Be careful, because that is hot and you don't want to burn yourself. And I'm going to set my timer for 60 minutes. And there we go. So I will show you in 60 minutes what we do next. See you in 60. The timer has just went off. It's been 60 minutes, and I'm going to open up the oven and I'm going to show you what the cake looks like. So that is what we're looking at. So what you want to do at this moment is you don't want to take it out. What you want to do is you want to let it rest in the oven. I've got my oven off. I'm not going to close the door all the way. I'm just going to leave it cracked, because what I have found from experience in making the cheesecakes is if you leave it closed all of the way and let it cool off like the directions say in the oven, then condensation builds up in the tin foil and leaks into your crust and gets it all soggy. So we don't want that to happen. So I just leave it cracked, and I'll come back in 15 minutes and take it out of the oven. So I'll bring you along when we get to that point. But right now I'm going to set my timer for 15. That way I'm on track, and then we'll take it out of the oven. See you in 15. All right, so as you can see, our timer is off. It's been 15 minutes. So now what I'm going to do is just take the cake out. Please be very careful with this part, because the stove is still pretty hot, and especially the pan and the water bath. So very carefully pull it out, and then lift your very carefully lift your cake out. Ooh. All right, so let's get this out. Alrighty, so our cake is out of the oven, and then the only thing that I do is I release the tin foil, because you can't see it from where you're at, but the condensation is already built up in there. So I want to make sure that I take the cake out of the tin foil and I just set it on my butcher block here and let it cool. So let's see if I can bring you closer. Whoops. This is as close as my cord is going to let me, but if you look, there is like water. I mean, that's how fast the condensation builds up. Because with the way that I had it wrapped, there is just no way that water could have gotten in there. So I'm just going to bring this over to the sink and dump it. And then this here is our cake. So you do not want to release your cake at this moment. You want to let it cool completely. And then put it in the fridge for 8 hours or overnight. And then tomorrow morning, or well, for me, I have time. So later on tonight, I will release the ring and put it back into the fridge for overnight. Now, some of the different things that you can do with this is to decorate it. You can make a topping. So what I do is I take some cream cheese. I take about 4 ounces of cream cheese and a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla, and I whip it all together, and then I'll pipe it on. And then, stupid me, I was at the store yesterday and forgot totally to buy strawberries. So with that being said, it's not going to get a strawberry topping, but I do have some mixed fruit in my freezer that I could crush up and put on top, or you could use preserves. I have some triple berry preserves that I made that I can decorate the top with, or put it as a side. So not knowing exactly what my daughter-in-law really likes on her cheesecake, I'm just going to leave it plain. So tomorrow, when I take it out of the ring, I will show you what it looks like. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so grateful that you were able to be with me and spend your afternoon with me. And please wish Mari, and her name is spelled M-A-R-I. Wish Mari a happy birthday. And in the comments below, please let me know if you're going to try this recipe and send me a picture of it. I would really like to know if you tried this recipe on your own. Last but not least, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, because the algorithm picks that up and allows more people to see what we are presenting. On a final note, I wanted to make sure that you, my audience or viewers, were aware that this is a working farm, which means that we have animals that we take care of. I don't just make cheese, I don't just make cheesecake, but I take care of animals. We trim the hooves of our goats, give them vaccinations. Same thing with the cows. We have chickens. We used to have sheep, but we downsized a little bit as far as the animals are concerned. We also have beehives. If you had listened or watched my video from the Lumberton Farmers Market and Vendors Fair, you will have seen that I had honey available for sale. And that was honey that we harvested from our own hives. And so it's like very fresh and it's amazing honey. So if you are local, if you are in the Silsbee, Lumberton, Vidor areas, please reach out and let me know if you would like some raw, fresh honey. Well, I think that's about it. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.